The unfamiliar toy car lay just a few steps outside the weathered bamboo gate, its shiny red paint catching the morning sun, standing out sharply against the dusty dirt path. It didn't belong there. But to little Henry, it was a sudden treasure. His tiny sandals, usually echoing safely on the wooden porch, patted softly against the dry earth as he moved toward the open threshold. He didn't look back. From the kitchen window, Tu Na saw it happen. The distance was only a few meters, but time seemed to stretch into something heavy and suffocating. She tried to call out, to tell him to stop, but her throat tightened, her breath catching in her chest. A cold, sudden fear flooded her veins, and her legs went instantly weak. Every mother knows this exact kind of silence, the terrifying gap between seeing your child wander and being able to reach them. Before she could force a sound out, a shadow crossed the gate. Strong, practical hands reached down, lifting the boy swiftly and safely into the air. Tang held Henry against her shoulder, her face calm, but her eyes scanning the road outside with sharp, protective alertness. Almost immediately, the quiet morning shifted. Neighbors stepped out from their doorways. A woman across the path paused, sweeping her yard, her broom resting against her hip. An older man walking his bicycle stopped to watch. No one spoke, but the message was clear. This was their village. No one could arbitrarily approach this house. By late afternoon, the immediate panic of the morning had faded, but a heavy, unspoken anxiety had taken its place inside the wooden house. The farm's rhythm continued outside, but inside the kitchen, everything felt different. Tu Na sat at the wooden table, a bowl of sweet potato porridge resting halfway eaten. She was feeding Henry, but her arm remained wrapped securely around his waist, holding him just a fraction too tightly against her side. Every time a cart rattled past on the dirt road or a stray dog barked in the distance, her eyes darted toward the open doorway. The peaceful breeze that usually cooled the house now felt like an uninvited guest. Outside, the afternoon sun was beginning to dip lower, casting long, stretching shadows across the yard. Alex walked slowly along the perimeter of the property. He didn't say anything, but his silence carried the weight of the morning's near miss. He paused near the workshop entrance, his boots crunching softly on the gravel, and stared out at the bamboo gate. For years, this simple boundary had been enough. The gate was meant to keep stray chickens out, not to act as a wall against the world. But their life was changing. As the family's farm and workshop grew, producing more goods and attracting more foot traffic, the quiet isolation they once relied on was disappearing. Buyers came and went, delivery trucks parked near the path. The very success they had worked hard to build was slowly bringing the outside world closer to their doorstep. Alex stepped into the deeper shade behind the kitchen, scanning the corners of the yard. In the daylight, this was a vibrant, busy space, but as the shadows lengthened, making the spaces behind the house look darker and more isolated, the physical gaps in their home's defense became painfully obvious. Have you ever noticed how a house feels perfectly safe until the moment you realize exactly what you have to lose? Tu Na finally exhaled, her hands trembling as she pressed them against the rough wood of the window frame. The overwhelming relief washed over her as she hurried out to take her son from Tang's arms. She buried her face in Henry's soft hair, breathing in his familiar scent. The village had been there. Their community was a powerful, invisible safety net. But as Tu Na looked at the shiny toy car remaining in the dust, a quieter realization settled over her. The sheer, heart-stopping vulnerability of those few seconds lingered. Peace in a growing family cannot rely entirely on luck. That evening, as Tu Na washed the vegetables at the outdoor basin, she kept her back perfectly straight, listening intently to the sounds behind her. She was exhausted. The quiet vigilance was draining her energy drop by drop. Alex watched her from the porch, noticing the tension in her shoulders. The problem was not just the open gate. It was the realization that true family happiness cannot exist if a mother is always secretly afraid of what lies just beyond the fence. You cannot build a joyful, peaceful life if you spend every evening waiting for a footstep in the dark. The next morning, the rhythm of the farm returned to normal, but Alex moved differently. He didn't go straight to the workshop to check the inventory. Instead, he stood by the bamboo gate, a tape measure resting in his hand, looking back at the house. He slowly traced the lines of sight from the wide porch, past the outdoor kitchen, and out toward the dirt road. A taller gate wouldn't solve the problem. A heavier lock wouldn't change the fact that their daily life now required people to come and go. By midday, an unfamiliar truck parked on the edge of the property. Two technicians unloaded aluminum ladders and thick coils of black wire, carrying them past the vegetable garden. Alex walked the perimeter with them. He didn't just point to the front entrance, he pointed to the shadowed corner behind the woodpile, the blind spot near Henry's favorite play area under the mango tree, and the long exposed stretch of the wooden porch. Tuna watched from the kitchen window, silently drying a ceramic bowl with a soft cloth. She watched the men lean their ladders against the familiar weathered beams of their home. The sight of modern cameras and cables being pinned against the traditional wood felt strange at first, almost out of place among the baskets and drying herbs. But that was when the real lesson of the morning began to emerge. Alex wasn't installing these cameras because he didn't trust their neighbors. He was installing them because he understood a hard truth about building a life. Many families make this exact mistake. They work hard, they expand their workshop, they welcome more buyers, but they leave their home's boundaries exactly as they were when they were just a quiet, isolated couple. They upgrade their business, but they forget to upgrade their peace of mind. As the afternoon wore on, the sun began to dip behind the tree line. The vibrant, busy farm quickly turned into a quiet, shadowed compound. Alex looked up at the small, dark lens, now secured securely under the eaves. He thought he was just fixing a perimeter issue. He had not yet seen the problem that was growing inside the house. Night in the village falls quickly. The crickets start their rhythmic chorus in the fields, and the deep, heavy blackness swallows the edges of the yard. Usually this was Tuna's favorite time of day. But tonight, the quiet felt heavy. She sat on the edge of the bed, folding Henry's small shirts, her hands moving mechanically over the soft fabric. The window was cracked open just enough to let in the cool breeze, but she wasn't feeling the wind. She was listening. Every snap of a distant twig, every rustle of the bamboo leaves made her back stiffen slightly. She was trapped in the exhausting habit of hypervigilance, unable to completely lower her guard. Have you ever noticed how quietly a house suffers when someone is hiding their worry? Tuna didn't complain. She didn't ask Alex to stay awake and watch the door. She just absorbed the fear herself, letting it drain her rest, drop by drop. Alex stepped into the dim bedroom. He didn't speak immediately. He saw the tight line of her shoulders, the way she paused her folding to listen to a stray dog barking far down the dirt path. He walked over and sat quietly beside her on the edge of the mattress. "Look at this," he said softly. He didn't offer a long, complicated explanation about the installation. He simply unlocked his phone and placed it gently into her hands. The sudden glow of the screen lit up her tired face in the dark room. Tuna looked down. There, on the small screen, was the yard, but it wasn't swallowed by the terrifying, unknown dark. It was bathed in a crisp, clear, black and white infrared light. The camera swept away every shadow. She could see every single post of the bamboo fence. She could see the empty, peaceful expanse of the wide porch. As Tuna stared at the perfect stillness on the glowing screen, her grip on the phone slowly loosened, and for the first time in days, her shoulders finally dropped. Alex sat quietly beside her on the edge of the bed, the soft glow of the screen reflecting in his steady eyes. He reached out and gently covered her trembling hands with his own. "I didn't buy this system because I was worried about the workshop inventory," he said softly, his voice barely rising above a whisper in the dim room. I bought it because I saw how you were sitting in the evenings. I bought it because you haven't truly rested since Henry walked toward that gate. I bought it to protect your sleep. Tu Na looked down at their joined hands. For the first time in days, the heavy, invisible armor she had been wearing finally cracked. The tears she had refused to shed in front of the worried neighbors and the panic she had swallowed down while cooking in the kitchen slowly rose to the surface. Many families make the mistake of measuring a home's security only by the physical things kept outside. But the true hidden cost of a vulnerable home is always paid by the people inside. It is paid in the quiet, draining currency of a mother's exhaustion, in the tense shoulders of a wife pretending she is not afraid of the dark. The cameras were never just a technological upgrade for an expanding farm. They were a necessary safety certification for her mind. The quiet hum of the night outside settled comfortably against the familiar wooden walls. In the corner of the room, little Henry shifted slightly under his blanket, letting out a soft, rhythmic sigh in his sleep. She could see the workshop gate, completely still and completely safe. The confrontation she faced at that moment wasn't with a stranger outside. It was a confrontation with her own tension. She had to make a choice. She had to actively decide to let go of the invisible weight she had been carrying since the morning Henry wandered toward the road. Technology hadn't been brought into this traditional space to erase their way of life. It had been brought in to protect it. Tu Na listened to his steady breathing. For the first time since that terrifying morning by the gate, the quiet darkness of the house didn't feel like a threat. It just felt like peace. Later that night, the timeless rhythm of the village fully reclaimed the dark. The steady, comforting croak of frogs echoed from the distant, flooded fields, a familiar lullaby wrapping around the wooden house. Before lying down to rest, Tu Na picked up the phone from the bedside table one last time. She didn't do it out of a lingering fear, but out of a new, profound sense of comfort. The small screen showed the wide, empty porch bathed in perfect clarity. It showed the heavy bamboo gate, firmly closed and undisturbed. She set the phone down and turned her head to look at her family. Alex was already asleep, his breathing deep and even, one strong arm resting protectively near Henry's small back. She reached over, pulling the thick, warm blanket a little higher over her son's shoulders. As their farm's reputation continues to grow and more buyers inevitably find their way down the dirt path, there will surely be new, unfamiliar boundaries to navigate. But for tonight, the old wooden house is perfectly still. The paralyzing grip of the morning's near miss had fully dissolved, replaced by a deeply restored sanctuary. That is the deeper truth about building a joyful life together. But when you combine the warm, timeless protection of a caring community with the practical, intentional boundaries of preparation, you build an unbreakable shield around your home. As she watched them sleep so soundly, she finally let out a relieved smile, feeling a warm, quiet prickle of tears in her eyes. The transformation inside the room was quiet, yet completely absolute. You cannot rely on the love of the village alone, no matter how fiercely they watch over you. Nor can you rely purely on cold technology. High up on the roof, the steady, blinking red indicator light stands guard, watching over a sleep completely free of fear.